Hey, I'm here with an update with my Quonset. I can't believe it's been 8 weeks since I posted the last update in this series with the metal framing. I should be a lot farther than I am, but I actually have a lot of other projects going on, and I actually started a farm. So since I posted the last video, I think we've added maybe 11 animals to our farm, and so there's been a lot of farm related projects that I've been working on. So the Quonset has been neglected, but I've had a lot of you ask to check in with some updates for the overhead door that was installed, as well as my plan for sealing and waterproofing the Quonset. So the overhead door is in. I'll post some details on that right now. The waterproofing and sealing I have not done yet. I will show you the products that I bought and what I plan to do. I know a few of you guys were behind me on your builds and you were hoping I would get farther along so that I could give you my advice and mistakes and tips and tricks, but I will try and get that done within the next couple of weeks here. It's just been nuts. So let me flip this around and show you the overhead door. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the scoop on my overhead door. I'm really happy with it. It's pretty lightweight. It's been great. It is a steel back insulated door with one row of glass. It was much easier to install than I would have anticipated on a Quonset. I was really curious how that would hang with the bolts in there, but I just got it in white. With these, you can pick which row. When he was installing it, he said, "What row do you want the glass in?" I thought that was going to make the most sense, and so I am going to keep that white. Yeah, it's just your typical steel door, but I'm just happy with how easy it was to install. So what we have going on the inside is two rails, one there and one on the other side, and that just holds the track for the door. And because this door is only, I want to say it's less than, gosh, now I can't remember, but I think he said it was less than 200 pounds. I think it's like 100 and some change. So it's not very heavy. And all he did was he got some perforated round angle bar, and he said it's the heavy stuff, the 2-inch. He said they usually use it for much heavier doors. And really you just have the angle bar going straight up, and then you have, you know, a tie-in brace there is what is keeping that track system in place. I thought I was gonna have to crawl up on the roof to loosen the bolts that are at the seam for the Quonset ridges, but he actually had enough thread showing that he was able to grab onto them without me having to go up there, which was a big shock to me, because if you look at, let me just look at one of these lower bolts. I mean, there's a decent amount, but not a whole lot of thread showing. I would guess that's maybe half an inch or less. So I was kind of standing by on the installation day to jump up there, but he didn't need me. So you just have one back hang there, and then you have another back hang on the other side for that rail. Obviously those are going to be much longer because you're farther into the arch, so you're farther up in the ceiling than this one. And then you have one more set here for the garage door opener, which I opted to add on for just a couple $100 more. It wasn't anything crazy. So it really is a straightforward installation on how to get those rails and track up. He wasn't quite sure when we first got here how that was gonna work, but we figured it out and it was fairly straightforward. And then let me just show you where it sits in regards to the framing. So obviously this is still bare. We're gonna sheetrock this wall, but what we had for just the rough open of my warehouse, we've got the metal studs, and then we have, you know, like 6 inches of framing here because we didn't want the door to be flush against this, so that just gives it a little bit of something. And then we've got the metal stud here, and then we threw a wood piece there to frame it in, and a wood piece on both of the sides. That was a little tricky getting that in perfectly square, but we did it. And actually that's all we had. It was just that when he first came to install the door. And so when he first arrived, he actually had screwed these brackets at first directly into the metal studs. So he had it right flush. And he slid panel by panel, he slid the doors on. And then he really wasn't quite happy with that. So the next day he came back and slid all those panels out. He added this 2x, and he really wanted to give it a little bit more distance. So he took these off, put this 2x in, and then drilled that in. And this weather stripping is really what keeps the door flush then. And so it's solid hung. It was just, I want to say it was really just a 1-day install. He came at the very end of one day and then part of the next day to get that all done, but it was straightforward. I've got my door opener there since this isn't sheetrocked in yet. I think once we sheetrock, I'll probably pull that off and install it somewhere on the wall. And then I've got a little clicker. And then you can also, I've installed a few of these before for family. It's LiftMaster, so you can download the app and you can actually open and close it from anywhere from the app. So as you can see, it is really, really crazy messy in here. I need to get this organized and cleared out. My electrician is coming at the end of the month. So I've got to get this cleaned up. I originally was going to plan on power washing the entire floor and sealing it with the Valspar concrete sealer. I got a couple 5-gallon buckets of that, but from the reviews that I've read, that doesn't really last. So I think I'm just gonna leave the concrete bare. It doesn't need to be sealed. I think I'm just gonna give it a good wash. But in order to get, we've had a little bit of rain the last few days, and in order to get this completely sealed up, you can see, as I've mentioned in past videos, when it rains, you still have water seeping under the IBCs, the industrial base connector plates. I don't really see any water coming in on the gable end walls where we have the C-channel that the metal framing sits in. You see a little bit here. You see a little bit here on both sides of the door, and then you really mainly see it on these side walls, the Steelmaster side walls. So there's a few things that I'm gonna try. We'll see if it works. I bought this special caulk. It is Ultimate Metal Weathermaster Sealant. It adheres to all metal and coated metal. It's tight bond. So that is what I'm gonna try for. I'm gonna get my power washer in here and really just clean this all completely out. And this is what I'm gonna apply really well to all of these little, I don't know if you can see that daylight coming through, but there's opportunity for water to get in there. And then for the major seam where water's coming in, where this IBC plate meets the concrete, I bought this Loctite concrete non-sag. It's for foundation, walls, and masonry. It's a poly sealant. So I think that's probably gonna be the best since it's meant for concrete. And then that's gonna take care of that. So the delay on this is I just need to clear everything out of the warehouse and just give this whole thing a good power wash. So I need to get it all done for there. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to mention. So in terms of the gap, I don't know if I talked about it in the past, but there was a gap, a decent sized gap in between the OSB board and the trim, the outer trim from Steelmaster. Actually, I think I can show you over here because we haven't done this side yet. So when you finish, depending on where you put your gable end wall, I've seen a lot of other buildings where they set it in further. I wanted to maximize my square footage, so you can see that outer trim piece and my gable end wall, it just tucks right in here. And you can kind of see right here, there's a little gap there. And so we were thinking about putting backer rod foam in there, but I really just kind of wanted, and we can do that still later at a later point on the outside, but before I sheetrock these walls, I really wanted to get in here and have it sealed up really, really nice to just stop from any wind or water. And you can see that's where we stopped right there. I need to go up, and I think I have a couple of bolts up there I need to tighten before we do the rest of this side. So we did all of the other side, and I will say it was so windy that day. I actually had to pop on a call, so my friend Wes is the one who did this for me. It was so windy that day that as he was trying to spray foam that in, it just kept popping out because the wind here comes from this side. So he kind of just did the best he could. He did a really great job. He had to get an extension ladder to get all the way up there on the 16-foot high arch part. But the tools that we used for that, and I got these at Lowe's. I got this Great Stuff Pro Series foam gun. You can get, they have a few different types. This is the more expensive foam. I thought it was probably a little bit better, a little bit easier to manage. So this is the Gaps and Cracks poly sealant. I think the main difference is it's a fire block sealant, and the other one is just, you know, the big gap filler. And so I have this gun, and we have the cans, and you can see it's like you can't fit your hand much past in here. And so you can get in there, but with this can attached up here, this is where the can sits upside down, it's really hard to get past in there. So what we actually did is cut a straw, kind of a bigger straw. I think this is like a Chick-fil-A one that's a little bit bigger. And then we taped it to the end of the gun to just give a little bit of extension in case you have too tight of a space. So I think it took 3 cans, got it all the way. I've got a 34 by 40 building. 3 cans, took it all the way there. I got a little bit of there, and I think a little bit of there, but it didn't, we still have to finish the top there on the parts that don't go to the exterior. So things that I need to do before we get the sheetrock in here is rough electrical, which is coming the last week of June. And then I'm gonna finish foam filling that edge. I'm going to throw this R19 insulation in. Then I'll get my framing inspection, and then sheetrock will be next. But before I do any of that, I gotta get all of this, I don't know if we'll be able to get it cleared out, but kind of organized and in the middle so that I can power wash these ends and caulk and seal them up. And I'll report back to let you know how that goes. I'm really hoping that solves this issue here. I'm also wondering, I got enough tubes of that Type Bond to do it out here too. So we're gonna caulk that whole edge right at that seam, because I'm not really sure where the water's coming in. You see this drip edge that's built in. I don't know how water is seeping up and in there. So my best guess is that it's slipping through here because it's not sealed, and then just kind of permeating and seeping. But I'm so sorry for all of the delays. I know a lot of you are depending on me to go on the next steps of your Quonset, and maybe you guys will surpass me and hit me up with tips you've had, but I'll report back as soon as I get that done here in the next couple weeks.